principle is inside yourself. Ivana?
So you mentioned before, instead of focusing on the sin, focus on the principle.
Yep.
Could you please give an example? I feel like you have just...
Yeah, sure. Last week we gave some examples too.
Yeah, sorry, I haven't listened.
No, it's all good.
Yeah.
We haven't edited last week either. Just an example. Let's say you've got the principle. What do we choose this week? Different
What
ways.
did we choose last week?
I can't quite remember.
Truth.
Truth, that's right. Yeah, I was going to choose truth again, so
Yeah.
that's the problem. Okay, let's choose a different one. So let's say you're going to act in, you're going to work on the principle of developing faith. Example. So faith is, firstly you would have to educate yourself about what it is. So what is faith? Faith is the assured expectation of the things you hope for in your future. In other words, what you put faith in now is where you'll be headed, where you'll direct your life. So if you put faith in making lots of money, and you think making lots of money will be good for you, then you'll develop a life to make lots of money.
You focus all your attention
You'll
on
focus
it.
all your attention on it.
All your aspiration will go in that direction. Your
Yeah,
thoughts will be
desires.
about it. Your actions will be about it.
Yeah, I was like that in my 20s. I decided I was going to, become a bit more wealthy than I was, And so I decided the way to do that was to get property. And so I became so focused on, most of my everyday thoughts were about, in my late, which is probably early 30s.
Yeah.
And most of my everyday thoughts were, how do I develop this property? How do I find that property? How do I get the money to do this? How do I do that? Almost every day of my life was now consumed by that, because that's what I had faith in. And I did finish up with $4 million worth of property as a result.
But didn't you also have a lot of debt?
I did, but I had about $8 million worth of property and about $4 million of debt. So, that's one thing I learnt about property, is that people who generally want to make money in the world will end up with debt as well as income. Like some of the biggest multi-billionaires in the world now have been in huge amounts of debt, and by the way, still are in huge amounts of debt, many of them. But what they own is more than what they're in debt for. That's one of the things you learn about money. Not a very good thing to learn about it, but it's one of the things you learn. Now, if you look at that, that was a desire. As soon as I realised who I was, that desire just disappeared overnight. I no longer have that desire anymore. I just had one or two feelings, and bang, those desires just went. And I then thought, what a pointless desire I had. Having that desire. What a waste of my life having that desire. So I went from it being like the thing that consumed my thoughts through my 30s for the most part, not all, but until by the time I was 40 now, I didn't have that desire at all. Not at all. In fact, I thought, well, I've got to stop all that now. So I had the complete opposite desire. So the faith drew me into a different direction. I now have faith in a different thing. That makes sense? And that drew me off into a different course. But let's look at the principle. Faith, after that I realised, faith is me feeling that something can be obtained in my future. And if I really felt that was with my whole heart, I really felt that was true, then I would obtain it. Right? In other words, I would start to feel like I already had it before I even had it. And that drew these things to me. Right? The principle of faith. Now, I realised at that point that actually I was living in a place of faith, but just in the corrupt version of it. Makes sense? So this helped me go, okay, the principle is I must exercise desire in order to achieve something, and that desire, properly expressed in my heart, will lead me into achieving that thing. But I also could see that the choice of the thing was very important.
That's where the potential for the
That's
sin
where the
was.
potential for the sin was. So the principle being, this principle of faith is a very important thing to develop with your life. You will not achieve anything unless you develop faith in your life. But if you focus your faith on the wrong thing, it can make a mess of your life. Right? So in that process, I learnt those two things. I learnt the principle, what it was, but I also learnt that its direction was important. So now whenever I look at anything for my future, I'm going, okay, whatever is going to come up in the future, I've got to look at those two things. I've got to look at, firstly, I can achieve anything that I have faith in. Secondly, what I have faith in is very important. I must make the right choice. Make the choice to put the faith in the right thing. Right? And that has helped me now make decisions about almost everything we do. Like Mary will attest to that, won't babe? It's like almost everything I do now, it's go, okay, we can do it, but is it right to do that thing? You know, we can do this thing, but is it the thing we should be putting our faith in? Now, what that means is when it comes to making any choice for our future now, we don't make a single choice that's out of harmony with those two principles. In other words, we don't do anything that we don't want to do, that we don't have a desire to create for our future. And secondly, we don't do anything if it's out of harmony with love.
So I guess one thing that I really struggle with is working out whether or not something is in or out of harmony with love. Like
In other words, the what you should do.
yeah, and like we were talking about money, I've been very focused since I've had this job that I'm currently doing.
Yep.
For 2.5 years, I've
Yep.
been focusing on earning money and like saving for a deposit for a house.
Yep.
So I definitely feel like I focus on that, and it's like
Well, I had 13 houses and they didn't bring me any happiness.
yeah.
So
But sorry now.
can you see the focus on that thing
Yeah.
is going to be out of harmony with love? It's not going to
Yeah,
be.
because it's like I'm compromising within my job. I know that I'm compromising like love and truth and because I just feel. I'm sorry, just so everyone else who's listening knows, I'm a disability support worker, and so it's like part of my role is to give the client's choice and control. So it's like even if they've got
The wrong
an
choice.
addiction,
Yeah.
we actually
Help them.
Enable it.
yeah, so I know that and how the last time that I came to a living room talk, you were talking to me a bit about my to do with men,
Yep.
and then with my arthritis and stuff,
Yep.
and then so I've got so many male clients, and so it's like I know that I'm still doing the thing that you were talking to me about within my job,
Yeah.
and then it's like I'm driven by wanting to earn money,
Yeah.
so it's like
So can we just rewind, because you said I find it hard to distinguish what is loving and what is not.
You're not really.
Okay,
You don't
alright,
find it hard.
okay.
This is where the principles
yeah,
come in.
alright. So
This is
I'm
what,
not
no, just wait on for a second.
sure.
This is where the principles come in.
First point, got to listen to it.
Yeah. When most of us want to say, I don't know, I'm an innocent sinner, I'm just bumbling around innocently sinning. But if we really love principles, as your example exactly points out, you are saying, I know the loving principle. Enabling people to meet their addictions is not love.
But your faith is saying, I want a certain thing for my future.
Yeah.
So
So
I'm willing to compromise.
the principles.
In other words, the what you've chosen, so there's two parts of the faith. One is knowing that you can create something for your future, and you're now starting to learn, I can create some things for my
Yeah.
future.
And it's probably the first time in my life that
Which
I've
is-
actually felt like that. And it's kind of
Which is
sad
good.
because I'm just,
We know this too about you.
We know
We
this.
know.
Yeah,
Yes.
we know this already. And it's good that you now know this, that you can create something for your future. Ivana can put her heart into something and get it done. Do you know what I mean? That's a good thing to know. It's just what now I choose for my future. And it's good that you now know this, that you can create something for your future. Ivana can put her heart into something and get it done. Do you know what I mean? That's a good thing to know. It's just what now I choose for my future. So this is the second part of that faith that I was just mentioning. What I choose is going to be important, and what I do with that. Like, so what am I prepared to do with that, you know? And you're prepared to compromise other principles for that, right?
And
Which
so,
the average person is.
yeah, and so if we go back to your question, which is why is focusing on the principle going to help me with my sin? Well, if you decided to honour the love principle that you already know, it's already in you, you know, you would reduce your sin in this area.
But honour the faith principle too.
Yes.
So the faith principle is, yes, Ivana, it's great for you to be able to take some action in your life and have some direction in your life and to decide what you want for your future and to achieve that. That's part of faith. That's very important for you to do. That's a part of that principle. But the other part of the principle is also that it needs to be in harmony with love and God's truth in order for it to be of benefit to you or to others. And that's the part that's not right yet. Does that make sense? So is it going to work out? No. It's like, you know, you might get your house, but you'll be in debt.
and exhausted.
Yeah, of course.
And probably bound to the job that you already hate
Yeah.
because you have to make mortgage payments.
Correct.
Yeah.
Or to some other thing. And then if you refuse to do that job and you lose your job or something happens to your job, and then what's going to be the problem? You're going to be worried about paying your debt, and you probably have to sell your house, but you might get some extra money out of that, and so it's still benefit. But you know, at the end of the day, the very thing you put your faith in often doesn't work out, because what you put your faith in is also an important part of having faith, right? So you've put your faith in something, which is great, Ivana, because up until recently you haven't put your faith in anything. Right, you've lived a quite aimless life in that regard, and aimlessness is not good for your soul. It creates a lot of problems for your soul. So good to have a goal or an aim. All you now need to learn to do is I have goals and aims, but let's put those goals and aims more in harmony with love.
And not kid ourselves that we don't know what love is.
Yeah. That makes sense?
It's probably more honest to say I'm not willing to give up. Well, it's like I'm wanting the money, so I'm not willing to.
You're willing to compromise the principle in
Yes.
order to get the
to
money.
get money.
There are ways to get money without compromising principles.
Yeah.
Of course there are. But the majority of us don't know that, because we've not learnt that in our heart, and most of us don't have any faith in that. Most of us, with our faith, we sort of have this feeling that you can't do the right thing and then be well off as well. Most of us have faith that you do the right thing, you're not going to be well off doing it. You're not going to be supported doing it. You know, it's going to be hard doing it. So that's where our faith is. Our faith is corrupted in that regard. We often believe that to achieve the things we want to achieve, we're going to have to compromise the principles one way or the other to achieve them. And that's where most of us make big mistakes. So we're learning faith, but it just happens to be faith in the wrong thing. And this is a part of understanding the principle of faith, is that you have faith, but for it to benefit you in the long term, you have to have it in the right thing.
So I guess it could be, so even though it's in sort of the wrong direction,
Yep.
it could be considered that it's a positive thing, because
Correct.
it's like learning about.
Well, it's positive because before you were aimless.
Yeah,
So it's better to have some aim or goal than it is to have none.
yeah.
In fact, there's a lot of sins you commit when you have no aims or goals.
Mm.
And in fact, one of the greatest sins you commit is against faith itself by having no aims or goals.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
And but can you already feel like by engaging with the aim, engaging some faith, it's already making you more sensitive to the areas where you're breaking the other principles. Because you're like, oh, now I really want this thing, but now it's really bugging me that I'm always
Yeah.
Be down to
breaking
the
love
job
principles and
Yeah,
I
I'm
have to do
always
this
thinking
forever.
about it.
Mhm.
But
And
it's
before,
like in the back of my mind.
exactly.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
So you're experiencing the very thing we're talking about, which is when you understand the principle, it can be good in the sense it puts you in a direction. If you don't understand the principle fully and you have the wrong direction, then that's not going to be good. But you're also learning that actually, I'm compromising other things that you didn't realise you were even willing to compromise before, right, in order to achieve something that you think is worth a worthwhile goal. And then you've got to weigh up, is this going to be a benefit to myself and others in the long term if I do this? So there are many, many jobs that you can perform, and even the job you're currently in could be performed in a better manner, in more harmony with love. And to be frank, what I see a lot is that in disability support, for example, it could be there could be a lot of things done to bring it into harmony with love, and it would benefit the people who are doing the support as well as the people who are being supported. But the average person doing the support doesn't want to do it, and the average person being supported doesn't want to do it either. And so it's probably not going to happen unless someone comes along who's sincere. It could be you.
And it could be you.
Me, if I developed some sincerity.
And you
And
would then recognise the wonderful benefits of doing something that's good for you as well as for others in a sincere place.
Can we just say one final thing about faith, and that is often this example that Jesus gave where you're growing, you're starting to understand the quality of faith by understanding, when I go for something and I want it, I can work towards it and it's starting to happen. But a lot of people engage that first learning about the principle of faith in their sin. And the danger for you and others with your injury set is that when you start to develop in faith and then you realise it's in sin or it doesn't go well because you haven't dealt with other areas where you're breaking principles, is to give up on faith altogether and go back to
So don't do that.
So don't do that. Know that you're in the process of understanding this principle of faith, but that's making you more sensitive to the principles of truth and love, and it's bugging you, and that's a good thing that God designed for us to become sensitive to all the principles and just be in a process of refinement continually. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. So that example we just gave is an example of the principle of faith and how it can affect your life in a practical manner, isn't it? And this is the same with every principle. And the beauty of it is if you apply the principle, you can apply it to every situation. So if you